Hey guys, Freddy here. Welcome back to another The Path to a New Edition. Or actually, this is really just an addendum to my last video. Because obviously there's been a lot of interest in One D&D and the playtest package that came out. So my video got quite a lot of attention, and there has been a very healthy conversation in the comments section where people have been making their own comments and bringing up lots of points, and there's been a lot of to and fro. So I wanted to do another video where I talked about some of the stuff that we brought up in the comments and discuss some of those points for people who don't want to trawl through a comment section for useful things. So, going back to the document, one of the first things that was brought up was the fact that in my video I never commented on the fact that critical hits don't work for dungeon masters anymore. If we look at the section on page 19, critical hits. Weapons and unarmed strikes have a special feature for player characters, critical hits. If a player character rolls a 20 for an attack roll with a weapon or unarmed strike, the attack is also a critical hit, which means it deals extra damage to the target. Now, that is very clear that it's only players that do critical hits. Monsters, NPCs, Dungeon Master controlled creatures do not get critical hits anymore. Now, their explanation in their hour-long video was that the rule has always supposedly worked like this. So I didn't comment on it because I wasn't sure. It didn't sound right to me. So I've ended up going through my Dungeon Master's Guide, and I found a number of references to how a Dungeon Master can change their roles to save characters. If you get a critical hit on a player which is going to kill them just by the bad roll of the dice, then fumble it. Change it so the players are having fun. Now, if a Dungeon Master can't do a critical hit, why put a rule or advice in the Dungeon Master's Guide to account for a situation where you roll a critical hit? So the comments in that video that Wizard of the Coast made obviously were not right. Now, my thoughts are that this changes the game. While I can understand what they're talking about, because they mention in that video that large monsters like dragons will have the ability to recharge or have the ability to recharge their attacks. So when you're fighting a dragon, it breathes and it does a massive attack, and that is counted as its version of a critical hit. But it can't do that until it rolls its recharge, and that is like it earning another critical hit that the Dungeon Master can decide whether they want to use or not. Because he doesn't want to wipe the party out. He gets to decide whether he uses critical hits which the monster earns. And I can totally understand that, except part of the fun of Dungeons & Dragons is the little guys. So, the kobold, the goblin, which is facing off against the party's paladin, this massive armoured warrior, and it crits him, and he falls on his bum, and he's down, and the thief has to leap in and save his life. And that's the situations that players talk about. They talk about these stupid occasions when chance just acted against them. They don't talk about the time that a massive dragon did massive damage, because it's expected. What's unexpected is the little creatures doing massive damage. And this takes that away. So I am not hugely in favour of it. I prefer critical hits just to be critical hits. Now, what it does mention, if you roll a 20, they still hit. Automatically hits. 1s and 20s are still automatic successes, automatic failures. So a goblin will still hit no matter the armour class if they roll a 20. But it's not the same as being able to do double damage. And as I said, I don't think that's a lot of fun. I think keeping critical hits as they were is a far more fun option. Something else people have commented on is the fact that this is making character creation a lot more complex if we go to the backgrounds, but it also works for the classes. So if you want to create a half-elf character, you need to look at the human stats, you have to look at the elf stats, you choose whether you're going to be more human or more elf, you combine the ages and then average them out to decide how long your character will live, and so on and so forth. And then you come to the background, and you're supposed to write your own background and come up with where your bonuses go, and which feats you get. And this is taking character creation and making it a lot more complex. But I actually don't think it works like that. What they seem to be offering is there's a simple path and there's more complexity if you want it. So if you want to just create a character, you decide you want to be a halfling thief and you choose the backgrounds from it. Let's have a look and see. A sample background, we decide he's going to be a cultist. There we go, +2 intelligence, +1 charisma. So we created a halfling thief cultist. And it was just a matter of selecting those. We then choose our attributes, as we usually do. We roll our hit points, however you're doing character generation. And it's still very simple. But if you want to have a more complex character, you can choose to be a half-elf, half-tiefling and make a more complex character. You can write your own background and build that in. And we will see what they do with classes. I imagine they'll probably do something like that, where you can choose one of the set classes, or you can kind of build in extra features yourself. Something else that was brought up about backgrounds was that they're becoming very much like Pathfinder 2nd edition. Now, I do not have Pathfinder, either edition. I've not read them. I've played in Pathfinder for one session, so I'm not really that familiar with it. I think it was about 10 years ago. But it's a game, I know it's kind of Dungeons & Dragons 3rd edition-ish, and that's about as much as I know about it from personal experience. Now, what I've been told is in 2nd edition Pathfinder, backgrounds work very much this, that you get your ability score bonuses from the background rather than from your race. And I think that's fair enough, but I see where the backgrounds are going to be going back to D&D next. They seem to be reverting to some older ideas they had there, which I was very much in favour of. I liked those ideas. So, them bringing this back, I like. And from what I know of Pathfinder, it came from Dungeons & Dragons 3rd edition. And the backgrounds seem to be taken from the D&D Next program. So there's a lot of cross-pollination here. Pathfinder's learning from Dungeons & Dragons what it does right and what it does wrong. Dungeons & Dragons is now learning from Pathfinder what it does right and what it does wrong. And we're ending up with a better game. So I'm just generally in favour of that. But what came clear out of all these is I need to pick up Pathfinder and have a look through because it sounds like it's really good. Other people have commented about versions, and they reminded me of something. So, Wizard of the Coast has said that this isn't 6th edition, this isn't 5.5 edition, there are no more editions. And this is very reminiscent of what other companies have done. Now, my personal memories are of when Windows XP came out, and Microsoft announced that that was going to be the final version of Windows, that all the other versions were just going to be Windows updates. And it was going to be patched and improved upon through updates, but it was always just going to be Windows XP. And obviously we've had Windows 7, 8, Vista, 10, 11, etc. Because that was a lie. It was just a marketing thing. And that's all this is. People have also compared it to what Microsoft did with the Xbox. So there was the Xbox, there was the Xbox 360, there was the Xbox One. Very reminiscent of One D&D. And the Xbox One confused people because with the Xbox 360, people were referring to the original Xbox as the Xbox One. Because PlayStation 1, 2, 3, etc. So Xbox One. But this is very reminiscent, and people have been pointing out that in a few years, when they want to sell another D&D, they'll be reverting the name. It'll be Dungeons & Dragons 7th edition to fix the mistakes of One D&D or whatever. People have also complained in the comments about buying books again. Now, this is something I disagree with because I think that I was going to call them TSR. How out of date am I? Wizards of the Coast asking us to buy a new rulebook every 10 years isn't so bad, especially as it's just the core rulebooks. They claim everything else is going to be compatible. So, us having to buy a new Player's Handbook, Dungeon Master Guide, Monster Manual, which if we're playing at a table and these are getting thrown in a bag and lugged around, You know, I used to carry my second edition AD&D books in a bag to work and then onto my game afterwards, and those are held together by spit, tape, whatever, because they're just so battered after 10 years of play. And them offering us a fixed book with some slight improvements in it, but it's generally compatible after 10 years, especially at the prices they tend to offer these rulebooks at, far less than other role-playing games. I have no problem with that. I'm going to be happy to buy new rulebooks. I can understand people not wanting to, but it looks like you're still going to be able to keep playing Dungeons & Dragons in a broadly compatible way. And finally, playtest. People have asked me if I'm going to be playtesting these rules. And I brought it up with a group that I game with at the weekends, my friends who I've been gaming with for 20, 25, 30 years now. And generally speaking, they are not wanting to try these rules out. We play week to week between different editions. We go back as far as Beckme rules we played with in the fairly recent past. We played AD&D recently, and we played 5th edition. And they're not bothered by playtesting. They just want to move on when the rules are out. They'll check the rulebooks out when they come out in 2024 and decide if they're going to start dungeon mastering them, playing them. So my group's not going to be doing the playtest. But what I've decided to do is, if you guys are interested, then I'm willing to dungeon master. So there'll be a Discord in the description down below. And if you message me or you send me an email to freddy@rpggamer.org, we'll set up a one-on-one where we can talk and I can go over some thoughts. You can go over what you want to play, and we can try and put together a group and we can put together some sessions. I don't know what adventure. I'm going to go back to an original adventure. I might run In Search of the Unknown, because I just reviewed that, so I've read it recently. I was considering going into the playtest packages for D&D Next and digging out what they asked us to playtest back then, because those will be compatible with 5th edition anyway. And we'll have a few sessions and see what we do with these new characters. Now, obviously, there's not much to take them beyond 1st level, but there should be a couple of sessions worth of gaming to have at 1st level before we go on anywhere. So if you're interested, get in touch with me and we can set something up for maybe 2 weeks' time. Anyway, I think I've whittled on for quite long enough. So thank you very much for watching. But as always, most of all, you look after yourselves, and I'll catch you later. Bye now.